So joining me, I'm going to introduce everybody here one by one. First up is Conrad McGee-Stocks from Uken. Come on up, Conrad. So Conrad is kind of the star of the show today. He's the head of UA and ad monetization at Uken. We're going to be talking about Uken specifically. They're an independent mobile game studio based in Toronto. And Conrad and his team, they're responsible for all the UA at Uken there, and their goal is to make great games and help them reach a global audience. And then next up we have Jason Waters from Facebook joining us. So Jason is client solution manager for North America mobile gaming at Facebook in Menlo Park. We work closely together on a number of clients. Prior to joining that team at Facebook, Jason led the growth of a number of verticals across the app ecosystem in the Dublin office, I would believe, for Facebook. Anything from dating to mobile tech, e-com, financial trading, Jason has experience with that. So he's now leading the efforts to fuel the growth of North America gaming at Facebook there. And then just quickly about me, if you haven't already seen me today, this morning maybe. I'm the head of business development at Bidalgo in San Francisco, and Bidalgo is one of the largest leading Facebook marketing partners out there. I've been in the game industry about 15 years, game development roles, every type of role. I've been, an artist, a coder, a CEO, and I've been at Bidalgo now for 3 years, and we've grown tremendously in that time, thanks to clients like Uken. I think it's really a pleasure to have you guys with me today to talk about the success story and kind of like zoom in on it. It's also, it's great to see like when things are changing and moving fast, like the industry is really hungry for new information. So being able to kind of go into this deep dive into the tactics, I think it's going to be very useful for everyone in the audience. So thanks, guys. All right, so we're going to start off. First, I don't know if everyone is super familiar with Uken, so I think we'll spend some time talking about the history of the company there. Conrad, you can walk us through that a little bit, and we'll talk about the success of your biggest title and kind of go from there. So tell us about the history of Uken.
So Uken started 7-8 years ago, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Roughly small shop, around 100 people, where we are now. And really we started in mid-core, hardcore, text-based games. So some of our bigger titles back then, Forces of War, Crime Inc., Heroes, really big on BlackBerry, on Facebook, but really we were totally cross-platform. We did that for 3 or 4 years, started by 2 founders, Chris and Mark, and we were really successful. And then over time, the studio sort of, one thing that's really core to our DNA is test and learn philosophy, and I think that connects to what we're going to talk about today, but being flexible and being open to testing, and that's how we started experimenting with different genres. So one thing that started out as an experiment was a game called Bingo Pop, and that's now one of our biggest titles. So we've since moved out of mid-core, hardcore into social casino and into casual. So some other things that we're working on now. We're partnering with Sony on a title called Jeopardy World Tour. So that's really exciting for us as well. And really, I think at the core, that's driven a lot of our success over the years has been test and learn and then iterating.
Right. I think it's fascinating that like Bingo Pop, which is one of the biggest, most successful bingo games out there, started as just an experiment. It's like that willingness to try something new and like pivot the path of the company. Yielded kind of like a step factor of your success. So it's really fascinating. How do you guys have been around for a while. You've seen a lot of changes. You've kind of rolled with the changes and succeeded. In your point of view, like how has like Facebook as a platform and as a user acquisition channel maybe changed? I mean, everyone knows it's changed over time, but like specifically in 2017, what were the big changes that really made an impact in 2017 to you?
Sure. So I think that, as a platform, I've been acquiring on Facebook for a long time. It's really matured and continues to mature. The products that are offered, the tools that and the scale that it delivers, it's far and beyond pretty much any other channel. And I think that's also reflected in how much time you have to invest in the channel, especially now. If I think like 2012, 2013, you could effectively have run like one split test and then just write recommended for you, and you'd like print installs. And I don't really think that's you can't really do that anymore. So if I'm thinking products, AEO, so app event optimization, and then VO, value optimization, I think are two big standouts. And I think that as you see machine learning move into buying, and how platforms are able to optimize the auction system to deliver value for more people simultaneously, I think that's probably where I would say.
Great. Yeah, I think it'd be helpful too to explain to the audience who probably doesn't know or understand exactly how the relationship works. Like, how do you work with Jason? Jason, how do you work with Conrad? Like how is that set up exactly? And like maybe you can just describe that for the audience. They definitely don't know.
Yeah. So, do you mind if I take a step back first?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, just for the audience, I'm quite new here. So, I'm Jason Waters, the Client Solutions Manager for Facebook in North America Gaming. Prior to Facebook, I worked with a Facebook marketing partner in Dublin, where I helped build and develop the sales team. 3.5 years ago, I joined the Facebook Dublin team, and as John mentioned, looking after the Russian app ecosystem, everything from dating, e-commerce, mobile tech, and financial trading. Now, I work with my partner and colleague down at the back, Rich Jones. Rich Jones is very much focused on the publishing side of things and in-app ads. We're very excited to be here today. You're going to see us at a number of events throughout the year. So, feel free to bombard us with as many questions as possible, whether on stage or afterwards. We're going to be at the speakers dinner, and we're also going to be at the party. So feel free to come up to us and say hello. How do we work with Uken? How do we work with you?
Frequently, a lot.
Yeah. One thing that I suppose pride myself on is service. So I suppose from a regular cadence when it comes to calls, I like to set the benchmarks out straight away. Where we're at, where we need to be, how to get there. That's almost like the first call that I will have with you as a business. And then from there, it's ultimately about communicating on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. One thing that, I think 90% of my communication actually happens via Messenger. And I only ever actually use email for a formal follow-up, if it's to yourselves or Chris. So that's really it. I think
Messenger is an amazing communication tool.
Yes,
I personally use it. Yeah, it's
didn't mean to plug it, but there you go.
No, don't email me. Messenger, Facebook Messenger for sure, 100%.
Yeah, so I guess maybe underscoring that is just the way that I or my UA team views the relationship with Facebook, or feeling less like like a slow sort of back and forth, and more an opportunity to bounce things off of faster, and really trying and treating it more like an internal resource as opposed to an external resource, I think is something that has definitely helped us, continue to level up our UA and continue to get to the next level and the next level and the next level.
Yeah, I think just to add on that, it's more for me about breaking down the formal barriers, and not everything has to be through email and incredibly structured and formal. It's how personal can I be with you from a relationship standpoint. So I want to make sure that you guys know that I'm open, maybe not 24/7. I don't want to be, getting messages at Saturday. But at the end of the day, if there's an urgent matter with your business, I'm totally open via Messenger or even mobile phone. So that's something that I, want to make sure that every client is aware of.
That's great. That's real partnership. So, yeah. So, I think everybody's very interested. Like the main thrust of the topic is really getting into the tactics, the deep dive details. Especially over the last 12 months, there's been a lot of new products at Facebook. People have tested them. Some have had success. Some still are testing. Don't understand how to best deploy this. And Uken had a lot of success over the last 12 months. And we're going to really break that down piece by piece and talk about some very specific tactics here. So the first one I think we'll start with, which you guys already mentioned, is app event optimization. which has been around now over a year. At Bidalgo, we were like very early in on supporting it in like a beta state where it was limited amount of clients using it. But since then, it's really taken off. It's been a tremendous tool. Maybe like Jason, you can give like a high level explanation in case anyone has never heard of it, and then talk about how you guys set this up and where it went from there.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a couple of things that I look at from app event and value optimization. Of course, I was still back in Europe looking after the financial trading industry on Facebook. So it was actually quite a delayed. It's weird. The level of communication and how quickly communication happens. It took quite a while to get across the water to the financial trading industry, and I think I was the first individual outside of gaming in EMEA to bring this product and optimization towards the financial trading industry. And much like you guys and the gaming industry here, it went in one direction, and that was up and to the right. Right. So I think that all came from you guys. Right. You guys were crying out for moving past the install optimization and giving you guys purchases and the value of those purchases. And it's great that we can give you guys those optimizations. What that in turn has done is actually condensed campaign creation, management, optimization, reporting, and then in turn has given you guys more time, right? So at dinner last night, it was great to hear that a lot of gaming advertisers are, thinking along the same lines as ourselves in looking to use that time to develop you guys individually, be it from a personal or professional standpoint. I think from a time perspective also, it gives you, the UA team, more time to focus on actually growing the business. So a big challenge is creative, right? So, and I think, I don't want to go too much into that, but that's something that we can touch on at a later time. But again, app event optimization up and to the right. With value optimization, I think, with Uken, I'm going to be honest, it's definitely been a challenge. And I think a lot of the partners that we work with are very good in taking one step back to take those two steps forward, providing the feedback. Us as CSMs and CPs delivering that feedback to our product team to ensure that they make the improvements and the adjustments needed. And I think, I don't think if it's okay for me to say, we're not there yet from a value optimization perspective, but day over day, the more we test and the more we approach it with that mindset of take one step back to take those two steps forward, we'll ultimately go in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. One thing that I would add, just from the buying perspective about app event optimization, getting the flexibility to talk to your product team and say, hey, you guys designed this product. Where's the pinch? Where's that best event? Like, how do you really identify that signal? And then empowering them to effectively, tell Facebook, hey, this is the signal of value. Go after this. And we know it'll return, and we know it'll hit our ROAS goals if we get that event or if we get more of those events. So, I guess being able to, if you think on the one hand you have frequency, or on the one hand you have frequency and on the other you have value, trying to find the elbow between an event that happens frequently that also signals value. I think that fundamental idea and being able to do that really opened up, a lot of opportunity. And then, I think on the VO front, it's definitely, I guess maybe not just directly with VO, but, in any product, I think on the platform, one thing that I would say, just like a tangible takeaway, would be like being very circumspect about going to testing and being ready to, you have to invest in the product and not being, accept that you may spend at not your ROAS goal for a little bit. But if you do that, you are more quickly going to get to a point where you can say, oh, I can double my return now. And I think that was, maybe a bit longer ago for us, but there was definitely a time where I was like, no, can't do that. We're not going to get a return. It's like, okay, accept that there's going to be a loss, whether that's you, working with your stakeholders and saying, look, I'm going to do this. It's going to happen. But it'll be better in the long run. I think that's, maybe a really strong fundamental learning and a key to success on the platform, I would say.
Right. Yeah, I think it's you guys touched on this, and it like the new products in 2017, app event optimization, value-based optimization, really created like a much better alignment in the market between the advertisers, the platforms, and the partners that are all involved in trying to like achieve these results. And now it's clearly like way ahead of any other channel at this point in terms of the alignment there that we're speaking about. And you also mentioned testing. I think like we can kind of go into that now and start to really talk about how do you set up tests on these products? What's the philosophy? You talked about being willing to accept a certain amount of pain before you can really crack into the value of these products. Why don't we talk a little bit about that? Like we can start a little bit, on the agility front. How frequently should you be moving? How quickly can Facebook react to your tests? That sort of thing.
I mean, we try to test as frequently as possible, so I literally mean day over day. Jay can probably give specifics about number of impressions and the amount of spend, what's significant. I think you always have to take that into account, but I think that most UA teams should have creative on the team. I'm like a super huge believer in that. I've got a background in creative as well, so maybe I'm biased. But I think having that flexibility and being able to move really, really quickly, I think that creative is sort of the engine that drives everything. And if you can't convert people really well, then you obviously have a big problem. But I think being able to test multiple times in a week is absolutely critical if you're competing and trying to spend at scale. That's what I would say.
Yeah, we talked a little bit like in the lead up to our session too, just about complacency, like not being willing to accept if something is not working that well or as well as you'd like it to. And that the most successful clients we've seen, and definitely you guys fit into this category, don't give up. It's like a philosophical thing. And Jason made the point, like, the Facebook platform is growing, so products are always improving.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and it's probably a strong word that I despise, is actually when I get the pushback that is, oh, we tested this. Okay, yeah. When did you test it? Oh, we tested it 8 weeks ago. And it's kind of like, geez, come on. I mean, in that time frame, we've added hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of new users to our platform. The feedback that Uken and other partners provide has been fed directly into improving our products. You, as the gaming advertiser, have also developed your game and pushed certain developments. So improving in-game mechanics, retention, user flow, etc. So I suppose the point I'm trying to make is everything's growing and improving, and if you're not in that mindset of continuously retesting, then you are ultimately going to fall behind. If you're not learning, you're falling behind. So if something doesn't work today, that's fine, right? Let's park it. Let's look out from a 6 to 8 week period, and let's take the insights, let's take the learnings, why it didn't work, what we can do differently, and let's go again. I think the approach that I take with advertisers is the 80-20 approach. You may all have heard about it. 80% of your budget goes towards your best performing combinations, products, solutions, tiers, etc., etc. And then 20% of your budget should always remain on testing new opportunities, removing the poor performing products and solutions, and implementing new tests. And that's always going to ensure that you are as nimble and you stay ahead of the pack. And being here 6 months, being honest, I've been incredibly surprised that not a lot of you guys are in this mindset.
Right. Yeah.
So again, if you're not testing, if you're not learning, you are falling behind, because there are advertisers out there who are in this mindset. And I think, Uken has been an incredible partner to what I like to do initially is set out a 3-month runway framework. Sounds sexy, but it's not. It's just literally an Excel file that has a 3-month plan broken out by week with 3 to 5 products or solutions that we're going to test. Over those 3 months, as the UA team becomes more advanced, the relationship starts to blossom, performance improves, we then start to increase that to a 6-month plan and, a library of products and solutions. And actually, at the end of that 6 months, you can look back and say, Jesus, we've tested a lot of products and solutions, and ultimately we have gained a ton of information that's going to put us, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of the competition. So going back to my original point, I hate when advertisers say, "Oh, we've tested it before, therefore I'm not testing it again."
Yeah, no, I think you touched on some major things that keeping that constant ratio correct about testing and being able to go back and test it again and again, super important. It's the best practice we've seen across all of our clients.
Yeah, I think being whether it's 80-20 or like in and around that number, other studios may have different numbers, but being very explicit about that percentage and sticking to it. And being really willing to accept losses on the search versus the exploit. So search budget being looking for new opportunities, exploit being making money on stuff that works. Another thing that I'd say, which isn't directly, I know some people are probably looking for, put this number, this is the CPA target, and all of a sudden, like users will rain from the sky, and all your dreams will come true. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. I think it's the more time that I spend working on this, I think that there's you can't underscore how important some of the soft stuff is. So do you have a really solid framework for retaining your learnings? Do you have can you keep track of all that? Because if you're testing like as frequently as you should be, it becomes really cumbersome, and depending on your team size, do you have enough people to actively get insight out of what it is that you're testing, and then are you able to come back and revisit when it's time to say, hey, we tried this, it didn't work, should we try it again? And are you able to track that? And I think that a lot of people in like the small to mid-size range either don't have the manpower, or they don't have a system, or they have a system that's too complex for what it is. Like when you're really small and you're trying to test, it's like move fast, break shit. When you're bigger, it's okay, figure out something that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're running a little lower on time. I did want to touch on two issues that we covered in the prep for this about creative. I think they were really insightful. So one was Conrad's concept of like, does this stop your thumb? Do I care about this? And then the other one was Jason's advice to be more creative about your creative. Don't just copy your competitors' creative. So maybe you guys each want to touch on that. Maybe we'll start with Conrad.
So the thumb stop, or maybe the less polite way to say it is, does it pass the do I give a shit test? If it doesn't pass the do I give a shit test, no one will give a shit. And that can kind of be hard if you're acquiring for a product that you're not like the user of. So one of our big games, Social Casino, I do not play social casino games. Not because I'm not interested, it's just not my thing. I like mid-core, hardcore. So you have to be sort of willing, and your team has to be willing to kind of get outside of that mindset. And it sounds trivial, but I think it's actually hard if you're going through, call it 15 to 20 creative a week. You do that every week. After a month or a quarter, you've burnt through a ton of stuff. It's really easy to get in a rut. And so I think you also need to have like a really robust process for breaking out of that. Because you're buying millions of impressions at a certain relative audience size at a point. If you're acquiring for social casino, or I guess it's slightly easier if it's casual, but there is a finite audience, however big, especially if you're targeting people that pay or high value people. They're seeing a ton of ads. You need to sort of stand out and not just be like, hey, 50,000 free coins, what's up? Download now, it's free game, and figure out like compelling value added ways of hooking people.
Yeah, I think over the last 2 days, dropping in and out of different presentations, and I think I've certainly learned a lot just how vast gaming advertisers are testing from a quantity standpoint. Brian from Consumer Acquisition mentioned an interesting stat that just stuck with me. 95% of their ads just fail, right? This morning you were speaking with Product Madness and Jay, and he mentioned 80% of their ads fail, right? So what does this mean? I think, Brian, you mentioned, you've got to move fast, fail fast, and learn damn quickly. One of the requests I get quite a lot is, can you give me metrics on ad formats, placements that are working incredibly well? And while I give you these, I don't want to give them to you. And the reason I don't want to give them to you is somebody else has already done this. So at best, you're only going to come in second place. And that previous advertiser has spent a lot of budget and impressions on targeting your potential customers with that same creative. Facebook, it's an incredible platform. the way I look at it is we've given you a blank canvas. So how creative can you be? How uniquely different can you be? Being here 6 months, quite fresh. I don't feel I'm as close to the elephant. All I see is grey. I'm quite direct. So I think, if you were to take the logo off a lot of gaming advertisers' ads, forgive me for saying, but I don't spot the difference. I couldn't tell.
They'd be identical, right?
You'd be identical, right? So the best success that I think I've seen with creative is a financial trading client where everybody cared. And what I mean by that is I was getting bombarded with messages through all platforms from the UA managers, the CMOs, the head of product, the creative team, the video production team, and even the CEO. And I was like, what on earth do these creatives have to do with financial trading? Absolutely nothing. But I was like, okay, they're compliant with our policies. Let's run with it. What do I know? I'm not a creative director. Let's go with it. And over time, because they were testing so frequently, they had that flexibility to fail from the CEO. They eventually hit a concept that just knocked it out of the park. And for 6 to 9 months, I would say, every other competitor was trying to chase them and trying to iterate on this type of creative. And they just couldn't. So they had their potential customers with a concept and creative that just nobody had seen before. So it was completely fresh. 9 months later, I looked at all of the competitors and they were literally all the same. Again, you take off the logo, it's the same. It's the same creative.
They've gone ahead and copied them.
Yeah. So I think, to sum up that point, flexibility to fail from top down is 100% needed.
No, I think that's great guidance as you go into 2018, understanding how important creative is. Leave the space to be inspired. Don't start on the shoulders of your closest competitor. Really, really think creatively about your creative. So I think we are, about out of time. Do we have any time for questions? Maybe just one
question. Anybody?
Hey, how's it going? I was wondering if you had any tips or advice for maybe some of us who are creative but don't really have control over those purse strings to try and push people who aren't, who are in control but don't have that mindset necessarily to be willing to test. Maybe they're more traditional in their ad buys and stuff and are so used to just doing the same thing over and over again and having it work for them.
So my approach, 2 things on that. I also don't believe that, what you hear is from clients, they have huge budgets, they can create it, on the fly. Don't agree with that. You can bring in somebody who cares. Again, you have to care. And if you give that flexibility to fail from the top down and you start listening to your UA managers, your CMOs, not just the creative team or not just the video production team. Everybody's creative. You can, we were discussing, before today, we can get inspiration from everything and we can also get inspiration from absolutely nothing. And that doesn't matter if you're in a creative production team or video production team or not. Everybody's creative, right? How we dress, how we want to be perceived. We all dress in a very creative way, right? And everybody's creative. Flexibility to fail is needed. I think the example yesterday with Rich and Brian, we saw examples from Glue. They took still images from their game and created high quality and a lot of quantity creative. So there's a lot that we can do from a creative production standpoint at a really cost efficient way, and everybody's creative. Everybody.
Right. They just have to care about it. Right. That's your message. Right. That's it. Okay.
All right. Big hand for the guys. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.